Welcome to the Sports Show. In case you're wondering, this is Master Shamim Haque, Filipino martial arts instructor and head instructor for Kalis Ilustrisimo, UK and Ireland, and also the arts representative in Europe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Now, Master Shamim, I know you have, after many years of searching, found yourself a truly worthy opponent in myself here today. But was it necessary to bring all these goodies to the table?
Like I say, you always have to prepare for battle.
Now, talk us through. What do you call this? And what is this used for?
Right, there's different weapons here. This is called an iron stick or iron wood, simply because of the weight of it and density of it. If you feel that one, you see
it feels cold like metal as well.
It is. It's very, very strong. It's probably stronger than most timber that you will find. And this is for actual fighting, whereas we have other stuff here, like a rattan stick. This is very light.
Okay.
That's for training because it's cheap, it's readily available.
Right. Okay, this is for students?
That's for students.
Okay.
All these, I mean, depending on the level of student.
Of students. And what do we have here?
All right, these are what's known as barongs. Barongs are a Filipino term for like a blade. These are when, if you get to a certain level, obviously, you can't give beginners wooden.
I was going to say, this is not for beginners.
No, this is for a bit more advanced. Otherwise, there might be some injuries. So, at different stages of students' progression, they use different weapons.
You're obviously a renowned martial artist, known globally, and you've been involved in the scene for many, many years. Explain to us what is the art of Kalis Ilustrisimo?
Kalis Ilustrisimo. Well, essentially, this is a Filipino martial art. Filipino martial art has different kind of branches. Some are purely based on the stick. Some have a mixture of sticks and swords. Some have swords, and it's kind of quite a varied, empty hands as well. Kalis Ilustrisimo has the name. Kalis means sword. Ilustrisimo is the family name of the founder. The founder's name was Grandmaster Antonio Tatang Ilustrisimo. So what Kalis Ilustrisimo means is the blade art of Ilustrisimo.
Right.
So even though we train with sticks and we train with wooden weapons, what we do is a blade art.
Okay.
So emphasis is always on
there's
the blade.
Great tradition involved.
Oh yeah, I mean, Tatang Ilustrisimo didn't teach his art to anybody because it was a fighting art, and he preserved it for himself because he was a warrior, he was a fighter. He never lost any fights. And the reason he never lost any fights, people didn't know his style. So when my teacher, who's passed away now, Master Tony Diego, approached him when he first found out about him, he would never teach him. He said, "Oh, go away, I don't want to teach you." But after years of bribery and presence and befriending him, he started to slowly teach him. And he asked him one day, "Why don't you teach?" And he said, "Because if I teach my art, my opponents will know what I'm capable of doing." So that was age 75 years old. So that's
when he started to teach Master Tony Diego.
That's right. And at that time, he was undefeated, real live combat, a master.
And this has been passed on to you. This knowledge has been passed. How did you come into contact with Master Tony Diego?
Well, that's an interesting story because I started when I was 16 after I left school, and I started doing a mixture of Taekwondo and the Filipino arts in Hackney. And one day, somebody came down to the club. He was just looking, seeing me training, looking. Afterwards, he said, "Oh, you look like you know what you're doing. Do you want to learn something different?"
And this was just random?
Random. This was just random in the club. He just came down one day. I didn't know who this guy was. So I said, "Yeah, tell me." He said, "Oh," he started telling me stories about Tatang Ilustrisimo, his adventures as a young man, his fighting experience, challenges he's had. And I thought, you know what? I like the sound of this. I'd like to do this.
Right.
So he invited me to come down to train with him. And I did that for a few years. And then maybe after about 4 years, 5 years, because he was not based in England, he was based in Australia. There was Master John Chow. He said to me eventually, "Well, actually, why don't you now go to the Philippines because I trust you now." There's a lot of trust
involved.
Because if they don't trust you, they don't like to share the art. So at that particular time, it was very quite secretive and very close-knit. So after he got to know me, he trusted me. He recommended me to go to the Philippines and meet Master Tony, which I did. And since I met him, that was back in 1999.
So let me just interrupt you there. You couldn't get direct access to Master Tony. You had to go through a recommendation, if I'm correct?
Yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened with me.
With you.
It depends on, personality as well of the
So-
person who recommended you.
I'm just using this as an example. If I wanted to just go there to his village and wanted to train with Master D, it wouldn't work out like that.
Yeah, back in the days, no.
No.
But as obviously we're talking now,
The modern day.
modern days, things are slightly changing. People do open up a bit more.
Okay.
But a long time ago, it was a bit more closed. So
And you've visited the Philippines many times?
I've been there loads of times. I used to go every year.
Okay.
When I was a young man, unmarried. So after getting married, having responsibilities every other year, and spend 3 weeks, 4 weeks at a time training. So that's how I learned. When I first initially went, I spent at least about a month. I went back again the following year and spent 3 months.
And tell us about your experiences when you travel back to the Philippines. Is it city life or is it quite reclusive?
Where Philippines is a lovely country. It's got over 7,000 islands, so it's a very, very nice place to be. But unfortunately, where our teacher was based is in Manila. Manila, if you know Manila, it's
The capital.
capital of the Philippines. It is very congested, very busy. There's traffic. There's not much. It's a city like any other city. So you don't experience the beaches and all the nice resorts. So we go just for the training. So we stay in a hotel during the daytime. In the evening, we go training, and that's how it is. We go to the gym in Chinatown. It's a little gym up the stairs in a very, very dark, no lights. Go all the way to the top, turn the lights on, get inside.
Right.
It's a gym. You train for 2-3 hours every night.
You've been a global champion, a world champion. Tell us about your experiences.
I don't know about global champion, but yes, I've
Same
fought
thing.
for the British team back in 1994 and in 2000. 94, I got a bronze. That was my first trip to the Philippines in 94. And in 2000, I won the World Championships in my weight categories, different weight categories, like
Okay.
boxing. My weight category, I think at the time was flyweight.
Right.
So I won that in 2000, which was a
Do you
good
think I'll
experience.
qualify for that?
Yeah, why not if you lose a few pounds? But
How was the experience generally? Were there fighters from all over the world?
yeah, at the time, it was called the World Kalis Ilustrisimo Federation.
Okay.
It was huge. There's people from all over the world, even from places like Saudi Arabia and
Really? Okay.
Bahrain and places like that. So it's a big, big turnout. American has the massive turnout. Australia's, then Britain. They're the three biggest groups. But it's people from all over the world. And it's very, very good atmospheres, quite well organized. It's fun. People get to relax after the competitions, train with different masters, because the opportunity to experience different things.
What does it take? Give me one key ingredient to become a world champion.
This art is the full name of this art is Kalis Ilustrisimo Repetition Originalis. It basically means the original sword art of Ilustrisimo, based on repetition. In other words, you have to practice, practice, practice. Nothing comes easy. You have to keep at it. So,
Does faith play a big role in your sport?
well, traditionally in the Filipino arts, it is quite faith-oriented in the sense that people have spiritual beliefs. Like there's something called the anting-anting.
Okay.
And Tatang Ilustrisimo had it. They have rituals, kind of prayers, tattoos, amulets. And what they believe is that protects them from getting injured or getting hurt, whatever. But as a Muslim, obviously, I don't believe in amulets and stuff like that. Obviously, we believe in Allah and He's our guidance and Savior. So
Fascinating.
we don't believe in those things personally.
But respect plays a big part.
Oh, yes. I mean, even though it's quite a dueling art, let's just say. This is a dueling art. Illustrisimo is a dueling art. When your opponent drops his weapon, you end your fight and respect, end of game. There's no more hostility. So you always have to respect your opponent.
How popular is Kalis Ilustrisimo? Is it gaining popularity? What I want to find out now, or is it a waning art?
No, Ilustrisimo now is getting quite popular. Unfortunately, Master Tony has passed away now at the time where it was kind of the height of its popularity. So we've lost Grandmaster Tony Diego, we've lost Tatang Ilustrisimo. Now it's in the hands of people like myself and people like head instructor in the Philippines, Arnold, Coach Arnold Narzo, and other people around the world, Canada, there's Tom, and other instructors. We are now left to propagate and pass on the art. There's so much interest in it now, but I teach a small group of people in Tower Hamlets.
Which brings me nicely onto my next question. In your senior role, within the continent and on a global stage as well, what does this involve?
Well, as in
your role as
right,
a master of the art.
Well, like I said, even though we have Master Tony give us recognition as master, we actually see ourselves as students. To be honest,
Okay.
We're all students. We're all learning. I'm learning all the time, and our job is really to pass on what we know best as we can, and get people interested in a pure sword art, not a stick art, which lots of Filipino martial arts are, which is fine. That's what I started off with. This is a sword art. We have to explain to the people the difference between a sword and a stick, and preserve what we've learned from Master Tony.
Is this an art that is age restricted? Do you have to be a young person to take it up, or is it something that anybody can?
Well, Master Tatang Ilustrisimo started teaching at 75. He died, I think, aged about 90, 95, something like that, still practicing his art. So I think age is no barrier. You can start.
And you yourself, you have a group of students you teach on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I teach once a week at the Ensign Youth Club in just off the highway, Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock, if anyone's interested. I've just recently appointed a few instructors who can carry on the art, because obviously I've been doing it for some time. It's down to me to pass it on. And the way I've recognized that is through some of my students who've been training for a long time. Some you probably have heard about, people like Abjol Mia, who runs a community martial art trust. He's one of my students and he's one of my instructors. So it's down to the next generation.
Master Shamim, it's been tremendous having you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, now you know who this gentleman sitting next to me is. If you would like to join his classes, we will provide information at the bottom of the video. If you would like further information, do get in touch. I'll be back same time next week in the very same studio. Thank you for watching The Sports Show.